Darren
Quarters
Waller,
it, by the way.
is
Sweatshirt. Yeah.
is one of his stars. I'm due to see him tomorrow, so I will send him a text in advance and say we need to rectify this wrong that's been lingering out there. 2020, we don't need more wrongs in 2020. Let's get some rights.
No, too many.
Too many wrongs. Let's get a right in here. So I will be on that. But so Waller.
By the way, really quick,
Yeah.
the idea of me wearing a Young Money sweatshirt to coach 6-year-olds
Let me tell you something.
football would be unbelievable.
There's no piece of clothing that you could wear out in public that will get more comments than that sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know from experience.
That's right. All right, continue.
That
Sorry.
being said,
You
so Waller is one of Andy's clients. And I used a long, long time ago, so it probably was 2015 maybe, or maybe it had to be. If he was drafted in 2015, he would take his clients to Vegas. So I was in Vegas with Waller. And back then, Waller was a 6th-round pick out of Georgia Tech. Everybody thought he was a great athlete. They didn't know really if he was a tight end or if he was a receiver. But he had, as have been well documented on Hard Knocks, et cetera, real substance abuse issues and demons in that respect. He was such a nice kid. I remember when I met him, such a nice kid, and I found it hard. This kid just really seems very had it together, and as I said, just a good spirit, nice guy. And obviously couldn't. He was drafted by Baltimore. Baltimore at one point had him, Hurst, I think, and Andrews, or maybe they had just, once they drafted Andrews, they had just moved on from him. But you think about this guy on that team. But for him to go to Oakland and to do what he did, last year putting up over the 1,000 yards, and this year he's on pace to do it once again. It's just an awesome story, and I really think it's one of those cool stories. And he's a guy that after his first year of success signed a nice contract. He could have waited and probably signed a bigger contract, but it was one of those things. Look, they took a shot on me when I was down. I like it here. I also know that I've had off-field issues. I want to lock in my money, and I know Kareem's getting killed on Twitter. At least I'm sure you've seen it for the contract he took, and I think Kareem Hunt feels very much the same way. This is where I want to be. I've had an off-field issue. I know that I'm on in thin ice unless I continue on my trajectory, and I like it here. It's my hometown team. I want to lock it in, and I think there's something to be said for that. And by the way, both of them will still be young enough to cash in if they continue to do what they set out to do.
Furthermore, neither was a first-round pick.
Right.
So they don't have all – I mean, you're talking about you don't have all this money that some of these early-round picks have in order to bet bigger on yourself. So I don't understand that. But he is an incredible story. They're fun, and they are a team, and we're going to get to this kind of in the 2 weeks, kind of where we are in the league and some of the news and notes. But before we get to that, we'll get back to the Raiders in that segment because there's something I think that's interesting with them. I think it's the trail has reached its end for Drew Brees, and it's one of those things where if you woke up and you didn't watch the game, and you just looked at the box score, what was he, 26 of 38, 312, a touchdown and a pick, and you'd go, okay, great, Brees was pretty great. He was good. He was accurate. He threw it all over the place. But when you watch the game, no, not, and it's not there. And I saw this 2 years ago at the end of the year with him, Z. Last year the injury seemed to help. The problem here is this is week 2, and reminds me of what happened to Manning at the end, is you just don't have it, you can't drive the ball. And some of the pick he threw, like my 8-year-old would have about that much velocity on a ball. Yeah. I mean, it was a floater.
It was staggering to watch. 13 of his 26 completions were to running backs. Yeah, that's obviously a very, very high, large number. Kamara 9 for 95, Ty Montgomery 2 for 25, Latavius Murray 2 for 19. Yeah, just really could not drive the ball, relying on Yak. But at some point, defenses aren't going to respect his ability to throw the ball down the field because it doesn't seem to exist right now. And what Michael Thomas has made his living doing was catching in the short or near intermediate area and just making sure he caught everything that was thrown near him. I mean, you're talking about a team that in this game averaged 6 yards a carry and 8.2 yards per attempt, but it never really seemed like their offense got out of first gear, which was a stunning thing to watch. Emmanuel Sanders, another thing too, with a guy like Brees, timing is so critical to what he does. I don't think it's a surprise that the people he had the most success with yesterday are people that were there previously. Kamara, Traquan Smith. But a guy like Sanders, he struggled with a little bit. And then Cook's really their vertical threat as a tight end. and he couldn't get the ball down the field to him. There were a couple where Cook was open. That was the stunning thing is the accuracy or lack thereof, even though we're going to say the guy completed, 26 of 38, which is really good. It's over 70%. You would think that it would have been more impressive, but watching it have a lot of concerns about that Saints team offensively, even though they've got good pieces and good talent. You wonder, and the notion, as we talked about before the show, that Taysom Hill is viewed by them as the quarterback of the future is silly. He's not, and everybody knows it.
Like I told you before the show, if he's the future of the team, you don't even chase him down punts. I mean, you don't chase down punts if you're the future quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, and that's what he was. He's on punt coverage, so that tells you all you need to know about that. As we get into the 2 weeks of the NFL in the books, really high quality of play.
Yes.
Injuries have certainly been there. When you talk about an enormous injuries to the 49ers, who I don't know if they can overcome all of that. Their system's great, but it's a lot to overcome. In terms of where we stack up, and this is where I want to get back to the Raiders. We talked yesterday about 6 teams that you feel like are in, right, or real close. So who's the battle for the 7th? So it's going to be the second-place team in the South. It's going to be us. It's going to be the Raiders.
Maybe even the Chargers.
Maybe the Chargers. Those are the teams.
That was a big one for –
those are the teams.
As a Browns fan, you actually had a vested interest in that game for the Saints to come back and win it.
Yes, you
That's
did.
what you wanted to see, and obviously it didn't come to fruition. But, yeah, this Raiders team is fun. I thought Carr was dealing. He looked good. I love the way Josh Jacobs runs. I know that he only had 3.3 yards a carry, but when you talk about just an exciting young group, Jacobs, Waller, and then I love Abraham at safety. I love him.
Yeah, I liked him from Hard Knocks.
Oh, loved him. He was the one guy with personality. His rookie year went away, in the blink of an eye. They had that scary moment on the side, on the sideline, but he was able to pop up. But they play tough. They look tough. They belong in Vegas. They should have always been the Vegas Raiders. Oakland, to be fair, as somebody who grew up in the Bay Area, is a great fit for them as well. But as you mentioned, it was never just about them, and it should have been. This is a great I think Brian Edwards is a good player. I know we didn't see Ruggs get going that much, but I know he's going to be a good player. They've got some talent here, and they're looking pretty good. And one thing that stuck out to me, and why you can tell these guys love Gruden. And I think Gruden is when it's going well, you'll love him. When it's not going well, I don't know if you'll love him quite as much. But did you see his interaction with Jacobs at the end of the game on the sideline?
Yeah. I did, yeah.
And you could just tell Jacobs loves him. He followed him down the sideline, hugging him. He's punching him, pushing him, and Jacobs is just kind of laughing. And then you could tell he had the mutual respect. That was just that was a big night for them. Yeah, to get that win. That was a huge night. You saw Mayock on the field afterwards. Yeah, that was a big night for them. So I would say that we're 2 weeks in, but you can kind of see who you need to be paying attention to as a Browns fan when your goal is to make the playoffs. And this is now a team. You would have said before the season maybe Denver, just too decimated. Denver could easily turn into a tank here, very easily. They could do that. So I think that's interesting with Oakland. Keep an eye on that South, the AFC South. That game in Indy in a couple of weeks is a monster game for us. That's a huge game for us. The AFC South teams. Houston going to Pittsburgh this week. Root for Pittsburgh. Just get them out of here. Bury Houston early and be done with it. And so when that race for 7, I think we kind of know who that is. Conversely, go ahead. I was just going to say, we get, to your point, we get the Colts here. We get the Texans here. We get the Raiders here. Those are 3
there you go.
Huge home games. If you hold home field in those 3, that's going to set you up very well. And it's Colts week 5 here. Then you're at Steelers, at Bengals, Raiders week 8, home here. Bye week, Texans week 10, home right here. First and understand. Those 3 home games in the second quarter into the first game of the third quarter of the season will go a long way to determining your viability as a wild card.
Yep, that's it. Well, there you go. So that lays it out. I mean, it sets up perfectly for you in terms of you get a chance to take care of your business here, and those are the teams that'll be. Those are the worthy adversaries for you when you try to get into the playoffs here, and that is the stated goal of this team by you and I. In one other thing, if you're over 40 and a quarterback, I think it's pretty. I think we've seen evidence it's done. I don't think Brady's arm is strong enough to get them over the top, and I don't think it's going to get stronger. You mentioned the flea flicker yesterday. It's a fantastic point. We saw Brees last night. Rivers is a train wreck too. They just can't. Even Ben isn't quite like he threw a ball behind last week on the forget which one it was. If it was Juju or Deontay, one of them was going right across the field. He rolled right and threw it behind him. That's something he wouldn't have done. He's not as bad as those three.
I was going to say, of the four, he looks
it's a different level.
By far the best.
Without question.
Yeah.
But the clock is ticking, and it makes me reassess the NFC because you had Saints, Bucks, Niners as Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. Right now, of those three are based on what injuries for the 49ers, obviously. But that's changed a great deal. We're 2 weeks in. Look at how big that changed.
Yeah, the AFC, I think, crystallized what we believed coming into it more than ever, with the one kind of surprise would be Cam just being a monster. And that changes everything, right? I mean, Gribbs and I have a Taco Bell bet on the Patriots and making the playoffs and the Bucks making the playoffs. Now, that bet was made at the time when Jared Stidham was the quarterback of the Patriots, not Cam Newton, so that changed it, and he looks spectacular. But the AFC, I think, has crystallized as we've laid out for you. The NFC is, I think, more wide open than ever. I think that the teams, if you look at in that conference right now, where you would say, who are the locks to get in? I think Green Bay is going to get into the playoffs. Seattle is going to get in the playoffs.
Seattle's the one seed.
Beyond that, I do still think New Orleans and Tampa Bay have roads there. I think you could end up seeing 3 or 4 teams from the West if the Niners can rebound from their injuries on the defensive side. I think the NFC East is going to produce one team. I think it's likely the NFC North produces one. I don't think the Bears, I don't think they're long for this.
I agree.
The South, I still think you could get 2. The West, I think you'll definitely get 2. The question is, do you get 3? Do you even get 4?
Maybe 3.
Yeah.
Right. 3 or 4, I think the West, depending on what Kyle can pull together here. But, yeah, so it's been amazing. 2 weeks in, it's been amazing football, and it's been great. And again, no positive tests.
Nope, which is fantastic.
Incredible.
And one thing to note real quickly, because I think it's an important thing, is that the NFC West gets the NFC East and the AFC East as its conferences,
so
as its divisions that it's matched up with. That gives it a big advantage, in my opinion, over, we were talking about the NFC South. The NFC South's conferences are the NFC North and the AFC West. I think that's a little bit tougher for them.
Big advantage.
The NFC West has a pretty good path to 3, and if the Niners do their part, maybe 4. All those teams are very good. Now, of course, they have to play each other. They each have to play each other, twice, but it's very interesting out there. And the AFC, though, the crystallization of this conference in 2 weeks is stunning to me.
Yep. Adversaries have been identified, certainly. A reminder, you can watch the show again on Brown's YouTube page. Compliments to our great friends at Buffalo Wild Wings. Coming up next, we go around the league, including more proof that the NFL is serious when it comes to handling COVID. And Denver, the cavalry coming over the hill. We get to that as well. Off and running here, Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here for my great friends at Raising Cane's. Bootsy's great friends as well. Nothing makes him happier. On game day, go for the win with Raising Cane's chicken fingers. Stack your roster with delicious, hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers and cane sauce. Huddle up with crispy, crinkle-cut fries, coleslaw, buttery Texas toast, and to top it all off, freshly made tea and lemonade. Visit the newest Raising Cane's on Brook Park Road in North Olmsted, right behind Great Northern Mall. Check them out. They're the best. Raising Cane's chicken fingers. One love. Let's go around the league. And boy, how about the fines doled out to our coaches for not wearing, yeah, you're on, for not wearing their masks. Shanahan got hit. Pete Carroll got hit. Fangio got hit. I'm pretty sure the two guys last night are going to hit pretty big as well. $100,000 fines on all of them, and an additional $250,000 for the franchises on those fines as well, my friend.
Yeah, significant. And I wonder about, I guess you want the coaches who are going to be the most visible, maybe from a TV standpoint, to be setting a good example. We've heard Mike Tomlin talk about it. I know our coach, Kevin Stefanski's had his mask on. I mean, Gruden didn't have his mask on at all last night, not even pretending.
Neither did Peyton.
No.
Did Peyton ever pull it up? I don't think he ever did.
Yes. JYD in the
Who's
house walking through, looking resplendent as always, the locks flowing. But if you don't have to have it on
Senior swag? That was senior swag?
Oh, senior swag. Yeah, absolutely. Just strolling, gliding down.
Oh, gosh.
Unbelievable.
Gliding, yeah.
The sights, the sounds. So my question, though, is if players don't have to wear them and coaches are getting tested in the same protocols as players, why do they have to wear the masks? And there was a guy in the Pittsburgh game that was an assistant coach who was chewing the largest wad of gum I've ever seen in my life. This was on the Monday Nighter that they kept showing. Definitely no mask at all. Yeah. But I don't get what the differentiation is between the players and the coaches given the situation.
I think you and I have been on and pretty on record with how much we are for the wearing of masks and
100%.
And practice it in our personal life on a regular basis. And so knowing what was at stake, and yet on this, it does seem silly. It does seem silly that the players don't have to wear them, but the coaches are, other than to set an example. I agree with you. It is strange. You know what – I mean, we know what Kevin Stefanski and the staff is going through from a testing standpoint. If you're being tested negative over and over and over again, why would you have to wear a mask? I agree. It seems silly. So I don't know if it'll get changed. Or I would also say this. The counter to that is this. And I'm not saying that what I did was just as important as what they're doing. But I wore a mask 4 days a week, all summer long, coaching little kid baseball.
Yep.
In the heat and the humidity. And you know what? It was fine. It was fine. You got used to it in a game or two. You're fine. It's fine. I coach 4 days a week, practices, games on Saturdays in football now. Wear a mask. It's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. It's fine.
I did the whole games. 2 games so far. 3 hours.
It's fine. Yeah. It's okay. It's not that. It's really not that big of a deal. But I do think this one is a little bit silly. Denver signing Blake Bortles, so he comes in there after the injury. This is there are 2 teams. On other than the 2 New York teams, which are just done, just cooked, and look like they're headed for the tank. 2 teams that now, to me, could very easily turn into it are Denver and Carolina.
Yeah.
Both of those teams could just make kind of the left-hand turn into Tankville, and I think be pretty good about it. When you talk about a lottery ticket of Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields at the top of a draft, might not be bad for Denver to lean into it this year.
I don't disagree, and you think about for a young quarterback, which is if you did tank, you're looking at Lawrence and Fields coming into that situation that they have set up for you is as good as it gets. You're talking about awesome. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, who's now out for the year, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, who's off to a tremendous start this season. Ends are incredible. And they're all young, all on rookie deals. It's an ideal scenario for a young quarterback to be plopped into. Mm-hmm. I know they like Drew Lock, but okay.
Not that much.
Not right. Yeah, we're not that serious. We're not that serious about
right.
it. So
if the Jets are going to punt on Sam Darnold for Trevor Lawrence, then I would say that Denver would do the same.
If I'm the Jets, don't you at least try to give Sam Darnold a non-Adam Gase year? I mean, everybody.
Right, but if you're in the position,
everybody who's been with
I
Gase
would probably
is better
draft
without.
Lawrence regardless. I would draft Lawrence regardless, and then you can trade one of them.
Sure.
But I just if Lawrence is Luck, whom most people think he's like in the Luck Manning sure thing level, you can't not take him because that's if Sam Darnold is whatever a really good quarterback in this league is, and all, let's say he ends up being like Carson Palmer, but if the other guy is Manning, well, as good as Palmer is, you'd rather have Manning.
Well, sure. You sure would.
So that's the spot. But there's a lot of teams. The Giants are going to be in that position. They're dreadful. They are dreadful. And now with the loss of Barkley, I don't know where they go. The Jets have been the worst team in football for sure.
Yeah.
And now I think you can add Carolina to it. If without McCaffrey, just kind of slow play that. No reason for Christian McCaffrey to, rack up 2,000 total yards this year on a team that's not going anywhere.
No, I think frankly
that's bad the next couple of weeks.
That's the best thing for them. Yeah. It's the best thing for him. We talked about that when he signed that deal. Why are you gonna have this guy just crush himself when you're not ready to compete?
Right. Yeah, just chill this one out a little bit. So interesting to see what happens there. Apparently, the NFLPA backed the comments from San Francisco that the turf at MetLife was dangerous, and the injuries were catastrophic in terms of Bosa and Thomas done for the year. Mostert, Garoppolo. There's one other one too, right?
Solomon Thomas is out for the year.
I mentioned him and Bosa, and Garoppolo, Mostert.
Tevin Coleman.
There a fifth?
Tevin Coleman.
Who's
out for like 4 to 6 weeks.
All these guys smoked by the 49ers, and I just don't understand how that's possible. That's a new stadium.
It also didn't happen to the Jets.
Right.
Which is weird.
Good point.
I think they need to figure it. I mean, look, it's too much for one game period, regardless of who's on what team. It's too much. And the Niners, Pedro lamenting their plane gets hit on the runway, their MRI machines aren't breaking down. He's like, it's an absurd.
They're at the Greenbrier.
Yeah, they're at the Greenbrier, which is a fine place.
Which is nice.
Which is real nice. Fine place. But
right.
Whatever it is, just get it figured out. Right. You don't want everybody who goes in the Meadowlands coming out with significant injuries. But didn't also, again, wasn't the Monday night Giants-Steelers there?
It was.
And
yeah, I don't think they put in new turf.
No.
In a week?
No.
So strange. Yeah, very strange. To me, of all the injuries on Sunday, the Bosa injury, he might be the best pass rush run stuff DN in football, and so much of what they do is that was just a backbreaker. And then Thomas on top of it. Well, that's their whole deal last year.
And DeForest Buckner, who's now in Indianapolis.
Right.
And I know they replaced him. I think they got Kinlaw to replace him. But, it's no joy with not Pedro right now. Pedro not pleased at all with what's going on.
He's not pleased. Well, listen, Pedro, you had a Super Bowl appearance a year ago. Easy. You've won a lot of titles. Relax, Pedro.
Right.
A lot of championships.
They'll tell you it's all.
Relax.
It hasn't been since, he barely counts the Steve Young one. The same as me. So he's like, it's really been since the 80s since we had the 4 in the 80s. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Unbelievable. Poor 49ers fans can't get it sorted out. All right. Coming up next, we'll take a look at this Browns offense through 2 games. What do we like? Where are the concerns? What needs to be accomplished going forward? Before we do that, though, are you a sports fan looking for a part-time weekend job? Get into the action at First Energy Stadium, home of your Cleveland Browns. WESS is now hiring for part-time event staff and security. Apply online at westhiring.com. We'll take a look at the Browns offense through 2 games coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If you live and breathe football, you know sometimes keeping your priorities straight can be a challenge. Unfortunately, the same can be true when you gamble. If you find your gambling is affecting other parts of your life, we can help. Get tips. Responsible gambling at keepitfunohio.com. We are tasked here, the Great Z, with taking a look at where this Browns offense is through 2 games. This is really a tale of two different teams almost, the way that it looked. And so then the question from Gibbe first is, what have we liked in the first 2 games? You really, how are you judging the two performances we've seen? Because the most recent one versus the previous couldn't be more different.
Could not be more different. And you've really, like you said, 2 games, 2 different teams. The one thing, 2 constants that you could say that you've liked very, very much. You have liked your pass blocking and run blocking, the performance of your offensive line, but it's beyond that. It's what your tight ends have done in the run blocking game. All of those things have been very, very important and have been very, very consistent, I would say, as well. Consistent run blocking, consistent pass blocking, really setting the stage for this offense. The other thing is the running backs have been incredibly consistent. Yeah. You've gotten, 123 carries, 132 yards in the first game, 210 yards rushing between the 2 of them in the second game, both amongst the tops in the NFL in yards after contact per carry, both amongst the tops in the NFL in yards per carry. So those two things, which in some ways you could say do go hand in hand, have been your most consistent parts of what you've done offensively. The huge variation, obviously, has come in the passing game. Baker Mayfield week 1 versus Baker Mayfield week 2. Odell Beckham week 1 versus Odell Beckham week 2. We have not had an explosion in the passing game. I think, Jarvis, if you were to talk to Jarvis, I'm sure he would like to have a few more catches. I think the fact that you win against Cincinnati makes it much easier for people to digest fewer opportunities in the passing game. Our tight ends have not been a factor per se in the passing game, although Austin Hooper did have a critical 3rd down catch against the Cincinnati Bengals. So some surprises there from that standpoint in that you haven't gotten consistent production in the pass game out of the tight ends, although David Njoku has 1 or 2 touchdowns. In week 1, he had a lot of production. This is a team, though, that was meant to be built up front. Jake Trotter tweeted out earlier today, that they're top 7 in both run blocking and pass blocking thus far per Pro Football Focus this year. That was addressed. Your ground game is as good as it gets in the NFL, right? I mean, for a team that is getting nothing from its quarterback as it relates to running, he did extend 1 play and get a first down on Thursday night. But from the most part, what we're saying is, you've got 2 of the top 9 leading rushers in the NFL on your teams. Nick Chubb is 4th overall, 184, 5.8 a carry. Kareem Hunt, number 9 overall, 158, 6.9 a carry. So that's the bread and butter. That's the backbone of your offense. And everything else can build off of that. This is going to be a tough test up front, but I do think we can have success. You saw the success the Arizona Cardinals just had against this team offensively with a worse offensive line, by the way.
If I had to say, to just limit it to one thing that I've liked in terms of the incredibly how pleasant the surprise has been, it's been the offensive line.
Yep.
Now, you knew Callahan would help, obviously. He's one of the best. But I didn't have Wyatt Teller being this good. I didn't. I didn't know. The last time I saw Jedrick Wills play before the start of the season was in camp, and I thought, boy, this could be tough. And we even had Joe on, and Joe was like, look, this year's going to be a struggle. Well, he seems ready to go, and he's great in the run game, and he had a great game against Cincinnati. Great game. Yep. You get a big test this week, obviously, with who Washington's going to throw at you. But that offensive line being as good as it's been, that to me is what I've liked the most. I feel like you and I spent all offseason talking about how good Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb would be. Like, we know who they are. They are exactly who we thought they would be. I don't think that I thought this offensive line would be this good this quick, because they were even really good against Baltimore. It didn't show, but they were really good against Baltimore.
They were excellent against Baltimore, and you've also done this, by the way, with a team that didn't have, in week 2, you didn't have Jack Conklin, who was supposed to be a big part of what you did. Yep. And Chris Hubbard stepped right in and was just tremendous. And the Browns have allowed on the season, just 9 pressures all year long. Third fewest in the NFL, behind only Green Bay and New England. They're doing a spectacular job. And the front in Baltimore is as good as any in the league. Baker wasn't even hit by the Bengals. Not even touched in the entire game. This week is going to be a challenge. And I'm excited to see that kind of a strength versus strength matchup for us against this Washington team. And it's a team, obviously, look, Bill Callahan's going to know this team pretty well based on his time there last year. So I'm excited for this matchup. All the first-rounders they've got on their D-line against our offensive line and all the talent that we've got there, that's going to be a good one. But, yeah, the line has stood out. I would say is surprising on the flip side of things just would be the lack of, I would call it, involvement thus far from Austin Hooper. I think you look at Austin Hooper's stats, you look at Jarvis Landry's stats. No, they're a little bit below where you would think they would be. Jarvis is, 107 yards. He's 107 yards through 2 games as a leading receiver on our team. Odell's got 96 yards.
Even the targets. Do the targets, though, with Jarvis and Hoop, and that's where it's even
9 targets in 2 games for Jarvis. 9. And he's caught 8 of them for 107. He's averaging over 10 yards a target. Elite. Hoop, 6 targets total in 2 games. 6.
So the last question, when you get to what do you want to see accomplished with this group by the time you get to the quarter mark of the season past Dallas, that's it. Because really, Odell's getting a lot of looks. He's getting a lot
16.
of looks, a lot of balls thrown his way. Not connecting, but certainly the most targets on the team. But Jarvis can't be that low, and Hoop can't be that low. So those things have to improve going forward. Is you've got to get those two, because all Jarvis does is catch every single thing that's thrown at him. So you want to take a little bit more advantage of that. Concern is too strong of a word, but that has to get better. If you're going to be, as we talked about, if you're going to be what that team that races into that 5, 6, 7 spot in the AFC, that's got to be better. That has to be. And so you get Washington, Dallas. By the way, you can throw it all over on Dallas.
Oh yeah,
throw it all over.
You've got to.
So you could make that. You could definitely make them pay at that point. So those will be the things to pay attention to in terms. We'll do the defense coming up in the second hour of the program. We want to play. I believe we have Mac and Kevin Johnson. Great to have them back. So you'll hear from them coming up next. Very excited to hear from both of those guys. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. fear that Mac had upon initially being hurt?
I mean, even when I went down on that day, I was just thinking to myself, like, why me? And I thought I was gonna be done for the season, with all the pain I was feeling. But I constantly started praying, when I got on the cart, just to get back good news, after I had my MRI and things like that. But I've been working extremely hard every day with just treatment and doing all the right things so that, I can come back.
You're up.
Let's go next. Let's play the one from number 3, because this is the one that we all want to know, and we hope Mac feels this way, and that is he confident in his knee going forward?
I feel I'm comfortable. Like, I can do everything, I thought I could do. Just got to continue to take it one day at a time and just go from there. I feel like I'm ready.
Up.
The other thing he talked about, Z, was just the karma of the day after the Chubb hit.
Yeah.
And that broke my heart a little bit. That just broke my heart because sports doesn't work that way. But when you're an athlete, you want a why. Why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? So I think it's natural to do that. But this is just random. The randomness of football is what happens here.
It is, and Mac's a guy that cares a lot, wears his heart on his sleeve, plays with a lot of emotion, and I think was really so excited to come in this year and become a leader on this defense and play what's clearly an important role. I mean, I think our linebackers, we need Mac Wilson, and we need Mac Wilson to come back and be playing at a high level, especially in coverage, because that's been a problem. We get to say the defense, it's pretty clear what's good on our defense and what's bad, and they're neon lights on both of them. And so Mac coming back is critical, but he's a deep guy. He's a very caring guy. He's a very spiritual guy. And Mac is somebody that I thought had worked so hard this offseason to put himself in a position to be successful this year. And it's great. He's still it's likely that he'll end up playing, knock on wood, that he's able to stay healthy, but that he'll start 14 games for you this year. You hope to see that he's able to go out there and start against Washington. Maybe they ease him back in, but we need Mac Wilson right now. Our problems in the middle of the field are well documented. If they're not, we'll document them some more for you in the 2:00 hour. But Mac Wilson coming back is huge.
Yeah, he's a big part of it, and Kevin Johnson's a big part of it, because a lot of the issues you're having in the slot are going to be covered up by Kevin Johnson, who does a very good job of handling that part of the business for the Cleveland Browns. Here was Kevin Johnson on the play he got hurt.
From a tight end in the red zone, and we were both extended in the air, and then he just kind of we twisted up in the air, and he kind of just landed right on top of me onto my ribs, and when the injury happened, I just thought that I got the wind knocked out of me really, really bad, but then it felt like a little bit different than that. I've had the wind knocked out of me plenty of times in my career.
You're up.
This was such a we all remember this time with Delpit and Mack and Johnson. It just felt like one after another. Greedy.
Yeah.
This was terrifying all of that time. His was really scary because you had no idea. Although you said you knew as soon as you saw it. Wasn't this the one you said?
What that with
Johnson? Like you could tell like something wasn't right.
I could tell
Johnson?
when he was on the
was
ground that he didn't feel right, but it never would have occurred to me, just like it never occurred to him.
Right.
A lacerated liver,
Right.
which is a terrifying thing, I'm sure, to be told. And he talked about that, how scary that was when he heard it. You knew he was a little bit banged up, but certainly didn't think it would be this. And I think his loss, believe it or not, is as big as any in terms of the impact that it's had on us so far. Delpit, obviously, but he's not coming back, so we can't say there was going to be a with Delpit and without Delpit to compare and contrast. This case, there was going to be a with Kevin Johnson without. I just also think that we need to have a better contingency plan post his return, which would, in my mind, if Greedy, Money, Mitch, and Denzel are healthy, those have to be your three cornerbacks. Have to be. What we're doing right now cannot continue.
No, it's a tough go of it. I think it's a fair question to ask Kevin Johnson if he fears further injury because of the nature of his injury. Here was his answer to that.
No, then that's the one thing that I'm just going through the process that all the doctors inform me is that once the wound is healed up, it's healed up. It's not like a hamstring that lingers or any type of injury that lingers on. So my liver is healed up 100%, and I feel normal. So I feel like I did right before I injured it.
You're up.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great news. And getting him this will be. Look, you want this defense. If this defense can be healthy, and we're probably as healthy as we're going to be on defense, probably this week, next week too, with that Dallas team you got to deal with.
Yeah, this week
that's a monster test next week.
This week is one, honestly, where, and I'm going to say this multiple times throughout the week, so when you continue to hear it, that's fine. Well, there are two things. There are two things that I want to know about this week from a defensive standpoint. Number one is this. Denzel thus far has played exclusively left cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
Does Denzel Ward continue to play exclusively left cornerback? He's played exclusively left. Money Mitch has played exclusively right. 0 snaps opposite. So far this year, McLaurin on his outside wide snaps, 80% of the time has been split left, which would put him against Money Mitch. 20% of the time he's been split right, which would put him against Denzel Ward. Question one, do we follow? Do we have Denzel Ward say, you know what, this game, you're going wherever it is that Terry McLaurin goes? He's 46% of their passing offense, highest percentage of any one player in the NFL in terms of a percentage of a passing offense in the NFL. So
obviously those two would know each other pretty well.
Also, the Battle of the Buckeyes. That's title in the written word. Don't worry. I was there with you, brother. So that's question one. Question two is if you say, no, we're not going to do that, do you do the old Bill Belichick trick when Bill Belichick had Revis? Which is what Bill Belichick would do in a game like this, is not have Revis cover that guy. Oh, no. He would double that guy everywhere and let Revis play single coverage on, in this case, Steven Sims. So you feel, okay, we're going to double McLaurin and take him away. And if you want to go one-on-one with Steven Sims against Denzel Ward, go for it.
Knock yourselves out.
Knock yourselves out.
Fascinating. Going to be a good one.
We've played a lot of zone thus far. If there was ever a game, though, where I think that perhaps we go more man and say, let's let our guys get home, let's double McLaurin everywhere on the field, and let Denzel and Kevin Johnson play in the, man up on their guys, I feel like this is the game to do it, right? So that's something we don't get the opportunity, unfortunately, unless Gibbe can pull some real huge P type stuff to talk to Joe Woods directly. But that's a question that I would have. Not that he would reveal that to us anyway, but it still would be from a Big J journalist standpoint. Maybe we'll ask Coach Stefanski on Thursday night, Neil. I'm not telling you that. No.
On to the next.
On to the next one.
On to the next.
But that's to me is the fascinating game within the game this
interesting.
week.
Yep, absolutely. Sam Monson going to join us coming up next. Pro Football Focus, one of the best. Before we do that, though, be sure to stop by any Northeast Ohio Raising Cane's location this Thursday after 4. Help support high school football. A portion of all sales will benefit the Browns high school football initiatives. That's this Thursday after 4 at any Raising Cane's location. Raising Cane's, one love. That's a great job out of everybody involved with that. Sam Monson up next. Cleveland Browns Daily 850 ESPN Cleveland. If a car, truck, or motorcycle accident caused you injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk & Elk, a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Let's head out on the fifth, third money line. Our good buddy Sam Monson, Pro Football Focus, joining us. Sam, thanks so much for the time. Clearly, the headliner and the thing that we're all just marveling at is what we saw week one from this offense, especially in the passing game, to what we saw in week two in the passing game. Gives us great optimism. You wrote about it this week at PFF. How did that happen? What happened in 5 days to get this thing back on track?
Well, I think the biggest thing that happened in 5 days is they went from playing the Baltimore Ravens to playing the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, the Ravens, I think, were maybe the worst team in the NFL to try and get everything on track against. They throw a ton of blitz pressure at teams. They change things up. They throw some weird looks. I mean, you just have to look at the interception where Calais Campbell, all 6'9" of him, is dropping into a what should be a free zone to essentially cover up a hot route for Baker Mayfield. That falls under the category of things that you shouldn't expect to see as a quarterback. So I don't think it's unreasonable that he struggled in that game. Plus, they were able to shut down the run game and put the offense in a hole and essentially immediately take off the table everything that this offense wants to do from a schematic point of view. You know, the things that they want to run in terms of play action and bootlegs and all those kinds of things. And then week two against the Bengals, none of that was true. They were able to run the offense they wanted to run and stay ahead of the chains and generally be in favorable situations all day long. And I think, you know, it's easy to get too carried away and say, well, look, any offense in the league looks good when they get to play that way, when they get to play ahead of the chains and they're in an advantageous position. But I think it was a real concern that, look, Baker Mayfield hadn't shown that he was capable of doing that for a while. And as much confidence as you have in him, at some point you have to start getting worried by that and wonder if that guy is still there. I think at least we saw that, look, if things do turn around, Mayfield is still capable of playing at that level. He was still extremely accurate when the ball was coming out. He played almost a flawless game. I mean, the interception was bad, but outside of that interception, that looked like the Baker Mayfield we saw as a prospect, not the guy that was struggling so badly last year.
Sam, you were concerned, as you said. That was the first time I'd seen a little concern from you. So let's take your temperature now. We've seen one not so good, one reminiscent of the very good. What's your temperature right now?
Yeah, now I'm in the middle somewhere. I'm trying not to get too hot, not to get too cold, and I think we'll learn a lot this next week against Washington. I think that's a pretty good halfway house between, you know, the Ravens defense, which was so good and so confusing and so difficult to deal with that they just had almost no shot, and then the Bengals defense, which was the opposite, which was like the perfect, you know, tee-up pitch to be able to just knock it out of the park. Washington have a defensive front. They're going to be able to get some pressure. They're going to be able to come after you a little bit, but they have some weaknesses in the secondary. So it's a defense that you can attack, you can exploit, but it's going to pressure Mayfield into doing some of the things that he was doing, some of the bad habits that he was fostering before that Bengals game. It's going to give him excuses to start bailing on the pocket and start trying to do some of the hero ball things that he was doing before. And I think it was a good sign against Cincinnati that he didn't do much of that. So it'll be interesting to see if you ramp up the pressure a little bit, whether he starts to slip back into those bad habits.
Sam, what did you see different from Kevin Stefanski, if anything? I thought Thursday night that was as good of a total game as we've seen called offensively around here in a very, very long time.
Yeah, it was. But as I say, a huge amount of that is just the opposition. They allowed him to do what he wanted to do and, you know, run more of these play action concepts. The ground game, the run game period was so effective, obviously, with that two-headed monster in terms of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So this is what that offense is supposed to look like. It is a quarterback-friendly system, but it requires having a footing for it to function. You need to be able to sort of, I don't want to say establish the run because I don't think that's strictly true, but at least stay ahead of the chains and make sure that the entire playbook is open to you and you're not forced into this mode of chasing the game and dumping half the playbook out of it immediately.
When you look at our team, so much of the focus ends up on Baker Mayfield. So much of the focus ends up on Odell Beckham Jr. as well. But when you just kind of look at this Browns team as a whole, Sam, what has stood out to you about this team through 2 weeks?
I think the focus is in the right area. This team is going to go as far as Baker Mayfield, and probably that connection to Odell Beckham will take them. In theory, talent-wise, that's a phenomenal connection. It's a quarterback that has all the tools to be great. It's a receiver that's already been great in his past. And that's the single most important thing to having a good functional offense, is having that duo in the building. And the Browns have it, but it hasn't been enough yet. Things around them haven't enabled those two guys to get on the same page and to be consistently good together. This was the first game that we really saw indications that can happen, with Stefanski's offense, with that run game, keeping them ahead of the chains. Those two can connect, and they can be dangerous, and they can scare defenses. So, as I said, week 2, I think, was hugely encouraging. It was the first time in a long time we've seen signs that things can turn around and head in the right direction. Now we just need to prove in week 3 and beyond that it wasn't a fluke and it wasn't just a product of inferior opposition.
And acknowledging that it looked even more spectacular against Cincinnati, and understanding the difference in the competition. The run game was pretty good against Baltimore as well. It's just the circumstance wouldn't allow you to continue to do that. Furthermore, so too was the offensive line play, which we've been, if we were talking in the previous segment, Sam, before you joined us, and the thing to me that has been the biggest, I don't know, surprise, but I've been most optimistic about is how great the offensive line has been the first couple of weeks. They were good in week 1. They were good, really good in week 2. Wyatt Teller's been great at right guard, and Jedrick Wills at left tackle has been very, very solid, and that is a recipe, along with those two backs who are, frankly, look like superhuman from time to time. There's your recipe right there, is it not, Sam?
Absolutely. I think that was why there was so much optimism about this team heading into last year, is that there's a lot of talent on this roster. The running backs are probably the best running backs in the NFL in terms of a duo. Those two guys are incredibly talented. They're incredibly good. The offensive line wasn't as bad as it was being made look last season. I think you can definitely point to positions of concern last year, but they fixed one of those in terms of free agency and one of those in the draft, the two tackle spots, and suddenly the rest of that line is actually in pretty good shape. And, if the line is able to let that running game function, given the talent of the backs, and then just protect Baker Mayfield enough so that he trusts it. The biggest thing that could happen to that offensive line is Mayfield actually trusting that it will hold up and not trying to run away from the protection and making it look worse than it was. If all of those things start to come together, the line is more than good enough to help this team be successful.
It has been, and it's been the backbone of what we've seen. One thing that we haven't seen a ton of thus far in the passing game anyway, the tight ends, Austin Hooper coming in. And that was an area that we expected him. If you were out here in training camp, you'd say Baker to Austin Hooper is going to be probably his top connection. 6 targets, 4 catches through 2 games. What do you make of that? Is that something you expect to continue or something that you think will change?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think obviously we're suffering right now from a sort of small sample size period of the season. We're only dealing with 2 games, and particularly with Cleveland's first 2 games, the way they've gone, it's difficult to pull too much out of it in terms of what they want to do, because that first game against Baltimore, we didn't really get a great indication of what they want to do, and then the second game was kind of similar. But yeah, I mean, I think they do want to run multiple tight end sets. I think we know that from Stefanski's history, from what they did in terms of approaching personnel in the offseason, keeping David Njoku around, going after Austin Hooper. So I think we'll probably see that scale up as the season goes on, and then try and get the tight ends more involved. But they certainly haven't run it as much as we were maybe expecting them to do. But I think a big part of that is like we said, it's the game situations we've seen, the fact that things were functioning so well against Cincinnati and then so badly against Baltimore. I don't think we've seen a sort of true interpretation of what this offense is going to look like yet.
When you look at our defense, and one of the things you guys break down so many things, which is, in my mind, awesome about defenses, et cetera, but it seems that in this NFL through 2 weeks, if you're struggling with your safeties and your linebackers, it's going to get exposed. And I'll go week 2, for example. Outside, Money Mitch, Denzel Ward, 20 targets, gave up just 6 catches, had 6 passes broken up between the two of them. Inside, though, our nickel, and hopefully Kevin Johnson comes back, but our nickel, our linebackers, our safeties, gave up 30 catches on 35 targets. And that seems to be, at this point, early in the year, an Achilles heel for this defense. What do you make of what you've seen from the Browns outside of Denzel and Money Mitch in coverage this year, and how do you think they should address it?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think you're dead on that. Denzel Ward in particular had a great game against Cincinnati. People were talking about how A.J. Green didn't look like himself, but I think a huge part of that was he was getting covered by Denzel Ward pretty much all game. And Ward just did a phenomenal job of shutting him down. There was a catch that A.J. Green made where Denzel Ward broke it up like twice before it still somehow landed in A.J. Green's hands. So he was just locked tight to that guy all day. But you're right, in today's NFL, certainly so far this year, teams are targeting the middle of the field a lot. And there are certain teams, maybe because of their quarterback play, Drew Brees and the Saints for one, that almost aren't targeting anywhere else. They're living in the middle of the field. And you need to be able to close those windows, and you need to be able to attack, even if you don't have the personnel to do it. So I think it's going to be a work in progress. I don't know that the Browns have the personnel to just hold up in terms of single coverage, trying to shut down those areas. I think they're going to have to work schematically and try and find ways to confuse offenses and to attack them through zones and through moving pieces and misdirection.
Sam, big picture-wise around the league, 2 weeks in, there's some storylines that are very clearly developing. From your perspective, is there something, a team around the league that surprised you in how they've gone about their business in terms of you like what you see? And conversely, is there one negatively that you look at and you go, boy, I thought they'd be better than this?
In terms of positive, I think Aaron Rodgers, looking like 2011 MVP Aaron Rodgers, changes the entire balance of power certainly in the NFC and maybe in the NFL period. That guy playing at that level is as good as any quarterback in the league. I mean, he is up there with Patrick Mahomes. He's not just as good as any quarterback in the NFL, but as good as any quarterback we've ever seen in the NFL. Like, through 2 weeks, he is playing like that Aaron Rodgers again. And if that guy is back, that changes everything this season. And then in terms of letdowns, you can probably stay in the division and say Minnesota have looked horrendous. I mean, this is a team whose talent, I think, has been eroding a little bit over the past few years since that 2017 season. But it's all come home to roost in the space of one off season. There's no pressure on defense. They've gotten less than double-digit pressures both games. The secondary is too young and inexperienced to hold up. And on offense, they basically have one passing weapon. It's Adam Thielen and nobody else. So the Vikings have all of a sudden gone from a lot of people's favorites to win that division to people are talking about them in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes.
Wow, yeah. Life comes at you fast, doesn't it? Sam, always great having you on. Guys, read his piece. It's on Baker's Week 2 comeback, how he showed the improvement. Go to PFF. Check it out. Nobody does it better than them. Sam, you're the best. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
All right, that is Sam Monson, Pro Football Focus, on the Fifth Third Money Line. A reminder, all guests who appear on CBD appear via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank making Cleveland Browns Daily a fifth third better. Coming up next, we take a look at the defense at the bottom of the hour. Oh, pure joy. Higher or lower?
Better.
Oh, gosh.
Or worse.
Better or worse. Or the sweet spot.
The old sweet spot.
Pure joy. Coming up next, shortly. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Friends, let's talk about your mattress. It may be to blame for a bad night's sleep, back pain, and or discomfort. You've certainly gone to those traditional stores and you've seen the prices. Well, at Northeast Factory Direct, they've gotten rid of all of those extras. You get the same quality mattress, fraction of the cost. Alex partnered with a manufacturer in the United States that makes mattresses exclusively for Northeast. This is a huge deal. He buys those mattresses by the truckload, passing all the savings on to you. Pillow top, memory foam, gel foam. It's all the sizes. They got a ton of mattresses in stock right now, and they're ready to deliver them to you right away. They also have 0% financing available. Best thing you can do is go check them out. West 140th Street in Cleveland, Lakeland Boulevard in Euclid, or Freeway Drive in Macedonia. Or you can shop them online anytime at northeastfactorydirect.com. All right, let's take a look at this Browns defense as we think about what we've liked, where the concerns are. I think we know that. And what needs to be accomplished really before Dallas is where you need to be. You have to have it all right by Dallas, or at least you'd like to. What do you like so far of what you've seen, Z?
Well, so far you've liked your ability to generate pressure on the quarterback, and the Browns defense has done a very good job in that respect. Pass rush is regarded as being one of the better pass rushes in the NFL thus far in terms of ability to get to the quarterback. Now, the other area where the Browns have actually been, believe it or not, really, really good, your run defense. And that is something that it has been an issue for the Cleveland Browns for a very, very long time. This year, though, that has not necessarily been an issue for the Cleveland Browns. When it comes to your run defense, the Browns actually right now are 6th in the NFL. They're giving up 89.5 yards per game. They're giving up just 3.3 yards per carry, which is 4th best in the NFL. So the Browns as a rush defense have been spectacular despite facing two great rushing offenses.
Two great. That's right.
Baltimore in a negative game script. You still lock down their running backs to 3.1 yards a carry. You hold Joe Mixon to 2.9 yards per carry last week. So you've done a great job as a rush defense. I think your outside corners, Denzel Ward and Money Mitch, have been spectacular so far this year. The issue is everything else in the pass defense game. Sendejo has struggled. Carl Joseph has been decent. He's been good, fine. B.J. Goodson, Sione Takitaki, Tavier Thomas, struggling mightily. And there are too many matchups in the NFL where people can exploit that. This is a game where they don't necessarily have that big-name tight end. They've got Logan Thomas, the converted the former quarterback. They've got Terry McLaurin out wide, and then that, as I said, is pretty much it. They haven't really thrown the ball to their running backs much, although Antonio Gibson at Memphis made his name catching the football. That's where we have struggled. Against the run, no struggle. Against the pass, though, we've really, really struggled, and it's just been easy for quarterbacks. We're giving up 67% completions, 110 quarterback rating against so far. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. The Browns, one of the few teams in the NFL that have yet to force an interception this year. We're getting sacks. That we've got. We've got 5 sacks so far. It's not like the Steelers who have 10 or our opponent this week, the Redskins, a league-leading 11 sacks. Now, much of that work was done week 1 against the Eagles. But that's where we haven't been great. And unfortunately, if you were to say to me, Nathan, we could be number 6 against the pass and number 28 against the run, I would sign me up for that all day long. Teams that are great against the pass typically go to the playoffs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is something where we're hoping health plays a factor. But I think in passing situations, we might have to do some unorthodox things. And if that means in a 3rd and 9, they pop off a draw run every now and then because we got 4 corners on the field, Money Mitch, Greedy, Denzel, and Kevin Johnson, I'll live with that. Go ahead and turn 3rd and 9 into your draw play game. Fine. But we need to cover, and we're not doing it outside of our 2 outside cornerbacks.
Yeah. I think the big positives, the defensive line has been great. I think Miles isn't he 3rd in the league, 3rd or 4th in the league in pressure rate?
Pressure rate, yes. Pass rush productivity, they call it.
He's like 3rd or 4th in the league there. In that, the Steelers have like 4 guys in the top 6, I think. But they're so he's way up there in that. I think Sheldon's been incredible. early on this season, been very, very good. Larry Ogunjobi's been very good early on. Porter Gustin has been great. 5-star has been great getting in there and making plays. So that's been positive. Denzel and Money Mitch, elite. Everything else, as you pointed out, is the cause for concern. Now, cavalry will come and fix some of that, but this is some of the stuff you're going to have to live with. Part of the reality is that Grant Delpit was going to be one of the guys out there playing at the safety position. He's not there, so that's something that you can't fix. But Harrison will get better. Once he gets acclimated to the system, he will get better, and that's going to help tremendously. Mack Wilson comes back. That helps tremendously. Kevin Johnson, boy, that's about as big as it gets. And then Greedy really is a luxury now because Money Mitch is playing at the level that we all know that he can, which is elite. He's an elite. What he's done the first 2 weeks. So
he's playing very elite football right now. You look at our slot coverage.
Is.
For example, Tavierre Thomas giving up a quarterback rating of 131 when targeted this year. 12 targets, 11 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. That's got to be improved, and that should just be simply one of a guy coming back changes that discussion completely.
Yeah.
You look at yards per cover snap allowed. I think this is a great stat. Talks about how often a team's coming at you and then what you do with it when they do come at you. And this is for guys that have been out there for, I'm going to call it 50% of the snaps. So guys who are playing the majority of the time. Money Mitch, third in the NFL. Number 1, Richard Sherman. He played 1 game. Number 2, Tre'Davious White. Number 3, Money Mitch. 14 targets, 5 catches allowed, 50 yards, 46.7 rating when targeted, 0.5 yards per cover snap. That's insanely elite. Number 11, Denzel Ward. That's where we've been good. Other than that, unfortunately, not so much. And you look at our safeties, and that's where, as I said, we're having some issues at those positions with our guys. Carl Joseph's given up 141 quarterback rating when he has been targeted. And we mentioned Sendejo. Sendejo giving up a 149.3 quarterback rating. He is 50th among safeties who have played 50% of the snaps.
Yeah.
That's got to be addressed. I don't know if that means Sheldrick Redwine's got to get some opportunities. Ronnie Harrison Jr.'s got to get some opportunities as he gets more comfortable in here. Or does that mean we need to be thinking about giving some work in certain situations to Greedy or Money Mitch at free safety?
Yeah. Yeah, it's if you're going to be competitive, you're going to be what we've talked about this goal to be, which is a playoff team, then that can't stand. That has to get changed. It's got to get changed in a hurry. You will not be tested this week that way. You won't be, but you will be in 2 weeks against Dallas. That will be about as big a test as can be, and you better be right at slot corner against Dallas in a couple of weeks, and you better be right everywhere on the back end against Dallas, or they will shred you because they have a ton of weapons. Time for a little joy coming up next. It's a little game we like to call Better or Worser. Gibby calls it Higher or Lower or Just Right. Sad. Gribbs will join as well. Pure joy coming your way next. Cleveland Browns Daily 850 ESPN Cleveland. Brilliant Electric Sign Company is Northeast Ohio's largest full-service sign company, serving their clients for over 91 years. Contact the experts at Brilliant Electric Sign to provide you a state-of-the-art signage solution that will grow your business. Visit them at brilliantsign.com. Do you think we can get them to do a better or worse Brilliant sign?
I bet we could. It would be a lot. It would make a lot more sense than higher or lower as a Brilliant sign.
That wouldn't be a brilliant decision.
They might be able to make a not brilliant sign, but we're only interested in brilliant signs, like better or worse.
Oh.
I'd rather
Speaking of,
I would do that sign instead of putting any lights for Zegura on his little microphone. I'd still put that ahead of it.
I bet they could do that too.
Yeah, they probably could do that. They would be the people to be. What studio in the world do you know that doesn't have an on-air sign in it? When
Actually,
you know
there's an on-air sign right here.
That's not right in the studio.
It's right here.
My home office, baby.
When you walk in.
That's
when you walk in.
Yeah, but that's not here. That's not relaying information to the person actually on the air or not.
That's a fantastic point. There is not an on-air sign in the studio.
No.
Never. That's unheard of.
It's outside.
Christened by the
studio.
Secretary of the Navy.
I can see it just fine.
You don't want it to be in here. You don't want that kind of efficiency. Why? No clue.
Oh, boy. Pure joy. This is Higher or Lower or Just Right, brought to you by Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. The nation's largest medical school is preparing future generation of physicians, pharmacists, and dentists, with Brown's senior staff writer Andrew Gribble now joining us on the Fifth Third Money Line.
Gribbs, one day we will get
Go.
to you at 2:30, but right now.
Yeah, you know, it's par for the course on this show. I just expect it.
Yeah, well, I heard the BPA really runs right on time, is what I've been told. By the way, Gribbs, I was sharing the story of how you got huge screen time, halftime, and the people around me in the section were like, that's the guy from Better, Worse, or Sweet Spot. And I was like, yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, I got a lot of critiques on my interior designing on my third floor panic room too. I was a lot of commentary from the 6,000 people in attendance.
I love your panic room. Spectacular.
I think it's great.
Yes. Shall we play a little game?
Shall we?
Let's
go.
All right, gentlemen. Higher or lower this week? It is Mike Florio's power poll for Week 3 from Pro Football Talk. First and foremost, the Browns are ranked 24th. The quote from Florio: "Embrace the run, and the victories will come." Should they or should they not be ranked 24th? Agree or disagree? Zegura, start with you.
First of all, that's not a rhyme, and I believe he felt like he was throwing out a lyric there to a song. Doesn't rhyme.
I think he was, yeah.
Doesn't rhyme. Sorry. Gribbs would not, senior staff writer here, would not accept that. That would be edited into something much better. However, why are we behind the Redskins? I guess we get a chance to prove that.
Why are we behind the Broncos?
And why are we behind the Broncos?
Why are we behind the Eagles?
Yeah, they are not good. But, again, earn it. Fine. Sleep on us. Tell us we're trash. That's fine. I don't care.
Gribble.
Yeah, I feel the same way as Nathan does. I think the Browns should be a little bit higher, and I also I'll give Florio the benefit of the doubt on that. That would be called a slant rhyme, a half rhyme, an imperfect rhyme. It's suitable in my book.
Oh.
Written word critique
slant
out of
rhyme.
Gribbs. Gribbs bringing the fastball.
Never
today.
even heard of that.
He's got the fastball.
That's like when Fabio said that he's an actor/model and not the other way around.
What I don't understand, I guess what I'd be curious to know is, are you saying this is when he puts together this is where he thinks these teams will be at the end, or where they are right now? Because if it's where they are right now, and I'm led to believe that it is, if it's where they are right now, there's no way you're worse than Denver. There's no way.
No.
There's no way you're worse than Denver. There's no way you're worse than Washington. There's no way you're worse than the Eagles right now. So by that, you have to be betterer than where you are.
Better. Yes. Well, we get to prove it this week. We get to go, it's 23 against 24, brother.
Next.
Higher or lower?
All right. Chiefs 1, Ravens 2, Seahawks 3. Gribble, agree or disagree with Mark Florio's top 3?
I disagree, just like I did last week. I think the Ravens are better than the Chiefs right now, and I think they're playing better football, and I think they're probably going to win this Monday too. So I'm switching the Ravens and the Chiefs on this ranking.
Zegura.
What a Monday night delight, by the way. I mean, when's the last time we've seen something like this on a Monday night? I'm surprised NBC let this get through their Sunday Night Football fingers. But it's going to be spectacular. I agree with Gribbs. The Ravens right now are the best team in the NFL. I would put them at number 1. The Chiefs still keeping that arm behind their back, Bo. I'm not sure why. They did it against the Chargers, but they did enough. But I think that the top 3 are definitely correct as it is now. 4, 5, 6 I have more issues with, but the top 3 are correct.
Bishop?
Just take the Chiefs and put them at 3.
Yep.
So make them worser, and then just move the Ravens and Seahawks up, and then you have it. I think Seattle's the second best team. Ravens are the best right now.
I still think the craziest stat in the NFL that I've seen recently, other than the teams who scored 39 points without a turnover, were 440 and 0 prior to that game on Sunday, is that the Chiefs have won 6 straight games while trailing by 10 or more points.
Yeah, when you have the kid, he's a video game.
Sure is.
Next.
Higher or lower?
Coming in at number 4, the New England Patriots, 1-1. If Cam stays healthy, they won't lose many more than the one they lost this week. That from Mike Florio. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right, Nathan Zegura?
They are worse than that. I have serious questions
means.
about their defense, and that means that they should be ranked with a higher number, therefore being somehow in your world lower than number 4. So I simplify it to say that they are worse than the 4th team. Big questions about their defense. I still have big questions about their offense. Cam's looked great, but they still feel like they're lacking a run game outside of Cam. They are lacking playmakers outside of Julian Edelman, and I don't think he can carry an offense. So I think there are a number of teams actually below them that I think beat them right now on a neutral field, which most fields are.
Bishop, what say you?
Well, they have to be. How do you want this? You want it to be a higher number, but lower.
Higher is toward
That's
number
right.
1.
Isn't that weird?
Lower is closer to 32, Bo.
Isn't that weird? Gosh.
Then they would be
So they're
lower.
worse.
They would be lower. They'd be worser. They would be worser. I mean, for
Still
sure
not
below
ordered
the
a week
Packers.
later.
I'm not convinced that they're better. I don't know for sure that they're better than the Bills. I don't know for sure that they're better than like the Steelers, for example, at number 10. And honestly, the Rams have been more impressive through 2 weeks. So for sure, they got to go down a couple of rungs at the very least.
Gribble, what say you?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in these Patriots, and much bigger believer than some of the other people on this show. About
Let me
this
tell you
Patriots
something.
team.
I also talked about that. Stidham was their quarterback when this all went down, not Cam Newton, Gribbs. Let's just be clear about that.
But I have them worse and lower on this list. I don't know how you can have the Packers below them at this point. The Packers have been one of the most impressive teams to start this season. They've got 2 division wins. They are in a much better spot than the Patriots are right now.
Next.
Higher or lower?
All right, now we're going to jump down. So the Bills were at 5, Packers 6, Titans 7, 8, the Saints, number 9, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't look now, but here comes Tom Brady and company. Big win for them. They are 1-1. Gribble, should they be higher, lower, or are they just right?
They should be lower because the win, everyone knew they were going to win this week, and they had to kind of ice it out with Leonard Fournette at the end. And I'm taking the Steelers and the Cardinals and the Rams ahead of the Buccaneers right now.
Zegura.
Same.
We're simpatico. Beau Bishop's $1 million word from Monday's edition of CBD. Yes, same, agreed. They are worse. They are not in the sweet spot. They are not better. They are worse. Their
Bishop.
number must be higher than 10, than 9. Double digits. Higher.
Yeah, I already said same.
Yeah.
Lower, worser,
Better. Worse.
Next.
higher number, lower on your
Higher or lower?
I was hoping that sound effect would drown you out even more. Arizona comes in ranked number 11. So between the Buccaneers and the Cardinals are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bo, we'll start with you. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right?
Am I doing Steelers or Cardinals here?
Cardinals, Kyler Murray.
Higher, lower number, higher on your list, betterer
All you're doing is
than
confusing
where they
the
are
audience.
currently. They're definitely better than Tampa. I think they might be better than the Saints. They've beaten the 49ers when the 49ers were at full strength. They look good to me. I think they're better than Tennessee as well. I'd move them up in terms of where they are right now. I'm not saying they're going to end there, but where they are right now, they've been pretty impressive. That win against San Francisco on that Sunday afternoon was really impressive out in the Bay Area.
Gribble, what say you?
See, I don't even know how to answer this because I think I agree with Beau that I think they should be higher on the list. But my problem is with where the Rams are ranked, and I think the Rams are better. So I think that they should be higher on this list. But if I'm just going with the list constructed, the Rams need to be higher than the Cardinals for me. So they'd be lower in that respect.
Gribble,
do you
don't
see what
start
you've
getting-
done
That
with
really
your
went
words?
cross-eyed right there.
The English
that really
language
went
is a
cross-eyed
tool,
there.
Gibbe, and you
That
are
was a
turning
both.
it into you're making us all enemies of the English language. The Cardinals are better than where they are ranked. The Rams should be ranked better than where they are as well.
Yeah.
The teams should be ranked worse. We all agreed. The Patriots come on down. The Saints back on up. Back on up. I'm sorry, Drew Brees, I've seen it. I've seen enough. And I don't feel like this was Tom Brady against the Chiefs on that Monday night game a few years ago when everybody said it was over, even though he looked probably just as bad. This is no. They both are better. Cardinals, Rams, Steelers, also better than number 10.
Yeah, all three of those come up.
Next,
Higher or lower?
the Raiders are 2-0 and ranked 14th in Mike Florio's power poll. Are they higher, lower, or just right, Zegura?
They are better because right now the Niners are decimated, and if they played this week, I would say they would beat the Niners. So just on that alone, they are better than the 14th team in the NFL.
Bishop.
This is the sweet spot.
Oh.
Not necessarily in respect to this list, but this is about where I would have them in the National Football League.
Gribble?
Yeah, I think they're very close to the sweet spot, but then I agree with Nathan. I just think that they are much better right now and for the long term than the 49ers. 49ers are a mess, and they're not going to get the Jets every week. And they get the Giants this week, but then after that it's going to get a little more difficult with all those injuries.
By the way, best use of finding the sweet spot in a movie, Cable Guy, Jim Carrey. Always knew where the cable had to be. What a legend. Great, underrated Jim Carrey movie, by the way. Not one man's opinion.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Final one, Jordan.
Higher or lower?
The Bears. They're ranked 16th. They are also 2-0, up from number 21 in Mike Florio's power poll. Gribble, we'll start with you. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right?
I think I've got the Bears lower because there's a couple teams behind them that I like a little bit better, and that includes the Colts and even the 0-2 Eagles. I just think that they're better than the Bears. The Bears have had to squeak some of these games out. I'm not big on them long term.
Zegura with a look of disdain, or you have to poo.
Jeez.
Maybe you're
just out of
Incredible.
line.
You're
Right now,
constipated there.
you're not in the sweet spot. You're worse. I will be better than what you just did. I think that, frankly, the Browns beat the Bears if we roll the helmets out on the field this Sunday. So I think they are worse than their current ranking of 16. I realize they're 2-0. That's fantastic. They are the lowest ranked 2-0 team, but
Are you rolling helmets or balls?
whatever you want,
Same.
dude.
I
You
don't
need
know,
a ball
'cause
and you need helmets.
I didn't understand what you were talking about there.
Stop
Beau, or
it.
should they be
Stop
higher
it.
or lower?
Stop it. You're embarrassing yourself.
I reject your question. I would rather talk about the Jets at 29. How could the Jets be 20? They're the worst team in football. How could they be 29? How could the Panthers, the Giants, and the Lions worse than the Jets?
And the Panthers.
The Jets are the bottom. They're the bottom.
The Panthers have played.
What was that? Was that the McLaughlin group SNL where they just derail?
Yeah.
No. On that one they stayed. No, it's Jeopardy. Jeopardy on
Jeopardy.
SNL. That's
Jeopardy.
what this has turned into. That was
Trebek.
fantastic.
That's S word.
Where's Sean
and you're
Connery?
an idiot.
Where's Sean Connery?
Perfect. Great stuff, Gribbs. Great catching up with you. We'll do it
Yes.
again next week, my friend.
Sounds good.
Reminder, all guests who appear on CBD appear via the Fifth Third Moneyline, Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns Daily a Fifth Third better. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily. So much more to come right here on 850
So much.
ESPN Cleveland. Zenith is committed athletes as they are to the game. Zenith helmets designed with an uncompromising attention to fit, feel, style, safety, and more. Learn more at zenith.com. That's zenith.com. Couple of roster moves, Uncle Z.
1 minute.
Yes, the Browns have signed kicker Matthew McCrane and defensive end Jalen Jelks to their practice squad to make room on the roster. The team released defensive tackle Tanzel Smart. McCrane entered the NFL as an undrafted free agent out of Kansas State, signing with the Cardinals in 2018. He spent time with the Cards, the Raiders, and the Steelers that year, playing in 5 games, converting 8 of 12 field goals and making all 9 extra points. Most recently, a member of the XFL's New York Guardians, and made all 10 field goals he attempted. Jelks is 6'5", officially in his second NFL season, 6'5", 250,
30.
Selected in the 7th round of the 2019 draft by the Cowboys.
Did you just give us XFL stats?
That's right, with the XFL, 10 for 10 with the New York Guardians, Beau Bishop.
Let's go. What a job out of you. Fantastic. You're not getting that on any other show. Next level coming up next. We're back tomorrow. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.